Hello everybody and welcome to the Tuesday edition of Video Clips, and I'm going to start with a couple of announcements, one of which is really exciting. First one is Wednesday, April 23rd, that's tomorrow, is our next 90-minute Introduction to Plant-Based Nutrition Opportunity to Get Your Questions Answered event. And then, I had mentioned this before, we have a new format for our members to get continuing education. In the past, what we tried to do is schedule live conference calls and events, and the problem is that a lot of you can't participate when the calls are live at 9 o'clock at night, and sometimes we have trouble getting some of the speakers that we'd like to have agree to those times, and we can't use video, and sometimes cooking, for example, really lends itself more to video. So I decided to make a little bit of a change, and what we're going to do is we're going to pre-produce a workshop, almost one every single week, and post it on the members site. And doing it this way allows us to have access to more and different authors and to use video for cooking demonstrations. And so, starting in May, just a couple of the things coming up that I'll mention. On May 7th, we're going to post a video workshop on gardening, and Dell and Gary, a part of our staff, are going to take you into their backyard gardens, because they're both avid gardeners, and show you what they do and how they do it. And then we'll revisit the gardens through the summer, and you get a chance to see all of the harvest and when you plant different things and all that sort of thing. And then on May 14th, we're posting an interview with Howard Jacobson, who is Colin Campbell's co-author in the books Whole and also the Low Carb Fraud. So anyway, these will be posted on our website. I'll remind you about them on our Tuesday and Thursday video clips, and we're real excited about this. It really gives us an opportunity to expand the programming in meaningful ways, and since the vast majority of our members are watching this on the website anyway, we can get rid of that live factor and do some more creative stuff. So, with that in mind, I have a couple topics to talk about today, and the first one has to do with healthy sodium intake. A new study confirms a recent analysis that was done by the Institute of Medicine, which showed that both high and low sodium intake can cause health issues. The researchers looked at the association between sodium intake, cardiovascular disease, and all-cause mortality using data from 25 studies. And they divided the participants into several categories. They had low sodium intake, usual sodium intake, and high sodium. And in that usual intake category, they further divided it into low usual and high usual. And risks of cardiovascular disease and all-cause mortality were lower in the usual sodium group than either the low or the high sodium group. The researchers concluded that between 2,645 and 4,944 milligrams of sodium a day resulted in better health outcomes, and that within this range there weren't any meaningful differences. They also stated that this level of sodium intake is what is consumed by almost 99% of the world's population, including a whole lot of folks who have pretty low rates of hypertension. Now, I've written several articles during the last few years reporting similar conclusions from other studies. The issue is real important for several reasons, one of which is that most people don't like restricting salt. Humans have taste receptors on their tongue for a reason, taste receptors for salt on their tongue for a reason. It's because we are supposed to consume some salt. So for those of us who are helping people to convert to a health-promoting diet, I think we need to remember that every additional restriction we impose is a barrier to entry and compliance. So I think it's real important to choose the issues that are the most important and focus on them. And I think one of the problems we get into in terms of where we get some misguided direction going on is taking dietary adjustments or nutrient needs and that sort of thing that apply to a real tiny segment of the population, and then making a broad assumption that everybody in the population would benefit. I've talked about this with vitamin D before. There are a tiny little segment of the population, for example, patients with kidney failure, that benefit from vitamin D supplementation, but what's happened is lots of doctors think everybody benefits from vitamin D supplementation. And so it is with salt. While there is a percentage of the population that is salt sensitive, most people aren't, and they don't benefit and can even be harmed by salt restrictions. So let's just keep in mind our audience, who we're appealing to when we make dietary recommendations. As for me, I'll continue to put a little salt on my food. I've always liked salty foods. All right, the title of this article is FDA Announces Partnership with Drug Companies. Well, it's a little bit misleading. There's been no formal announcement, but I've always said that actions speak louder than words, and the FDA's decisions are so egregious and favorable to the drug companies, and they place Americans at such high risk from a health perspective that the agency has de facto become a partner with drug companies. The latest involves Avandia, a diabetes drug known to increase the risk of cardiovascular events. Now, Avandia is made by GlaxoSmithKline, or GSK, and the company actually pled guilty to criminal misconduct with Avandia and paid a $3 billion fine for deliberately hiding the risks of the drug. Now, the drug wasn't removed from the market, as it should have been, but in 2010, an FDA review panel changed the prescribing parameters. Avandia was only to be prescribed to patients who didn't respond to other drugs, and the patients had to be registered in a risk evaluation and mitigation strategy program. Now, the $3 billion, the fine, that people think, oh my gosh, that must have taught them a lesson. Well, it's just a cost of doing business. Nobody got fired at the FDA for conspiring with GSK to keep the drug on the market, and Avandia kept on being prescribed. The only ongoing trouble came from trial lawyers who filed lawsuits on behalf of injured patients. And I want you to think about this the next time you're thinking about what a great idea it is to rein in trial lawyers and to limit damage awards. The trial lawyers are the only group left in the country who are actually holding government and corporations that engage in misbehavior and individuals responsible for their actions. As if all this is not bad enough, in 2013, a new FDA expert panel reviewed a flawed study funded by GSK and reversed most of the 2010 restrictions. Now, the study that they reviewed actually showed an increased risk of cardiovascular events in the patients taking Avandia. Patients taking Avandia were also taking other diabetes drugs, which upset the apple cart in terms of the effect of the drug, and there was absolutely no blinding. In other words, the study suffered from poor design and the results were not accurately reported. And so this new review panel it absolutely ignored all of this evidence. It's unfortunately not an isolated episode. In fact, in Peter Gacci's book, Deadly Medicines and Organized Crime, he reported hundreds of such instances, and this is just standard operating procedure for the FDA. Drug companies put in their requests with the agency, and the staff dutifully complies. Even when action is taken, the consequences are meaningless to ethically impaired wealthy drug makers, and the government workers involved in the misbehavior don't even lose their jobs. I'm not surprised anymore, but continue to be appalled, and the reason I continue to talk about it is I've said many times, got to teach people to walk into doctors' offices and just say no. This kind of thing going on, I can't afford to take anybody's word for anything. And by the way, that includes me. I've said for years that taking control of your health isn't doing what I say instead of what somebody else says. It's getting information and making good decisions for yourself. All right, that's it for today. I'll be back to you again on Thursday as usual. Please pass this on to anybody who you think would enjoy watching it. Have a great day.